Attention flower farmers, let me introduce you to the Flower Farmer Club, a community dedicated to continuing education, cultivating business grit, and helping you to become the flower farmer you've dreamed of. As a member, you'll enjoy master classes on timely farming topics, the Bloomcast, which is an inspirational and informative podcast, the Sowing Circle to sow and talk seeds, the private community to network with other flower farmers, and then the Flower Farmer Forum, a virtual meetup with a mini training and a live Q&A. But that's not all. Our seasonal challenges will put your skills to the test to see just how much you're capable of. Friends, join the Flower Farmer Club today and watch your dreams take root. Hey, flower friends, welcome back to another episode of the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and thanks for dropping in. We're having kind of a wet, cloudy, rainy day, and I thought, what a perfect day to sit down and talk about what is coming out of our field right now that are just the perfect fall blooms. And I've named this episode The Baker's Dozen of Fall Blooms for the Cutting Garden because that's how I feel about this group of flowers that we are experiencing from the garden right now. But before we jump into that, just want to remind everybody that this podcast is made possible by thegardenersworkshop.com, where you will find so many resources over there, y'all, from connecting with our live gardening show, our sister podcast, Seed Talk, our online courses, our fully stocked online garden shop, so many videos and resources, blogs, so much over there, y'all. So please drop in for a visit, and we would invite you also to subscribe to our farm news, which really just keeps you on the loop on everything that's going on and directing you to timely resources as the season unfolds. So friends, thegardenersworkshop.com is where it's at. So I feel like I haven't talked about this subject very much, or at least let's say I haven't given it nearly the glam that it deserves. And that is fall blooms from your garden. And you know, as school buses are getting ready to start rolling out again and school shopping is underway, when all those things happen, I tend to go straight to talking about and teaching about all things cool flowers. You know, so many still don't know how to plan and plant cool season hardy annuals that lead to such an abundant spring. It just compels me to jump into that head first. But what I'm realizing is I have just been skipping right over sharing what is actually coming out of and happening in our gardens here at the Gardener's Workshop farm. And another really significant flower season, you know, fall flowers. What is blooming in my own fall cutting garden right now is so pretty, perfect for fall, and y'all, it's really just so easy. And because, you know, it's become such a natural for me to just plan for this season and to plant for this season of fall blooms, that I have just kind of allowed the cool flower subject to kind of overshadow all that beauty, and I haven't just talked about it very much. And so that is what I want to talk about today, is this forgotten group of flowers, right? And so today is the day that I thought that it would be timely to talk about. And it's because the thing that came to my mind is, you know, we're in August and we're coming out of what for some people has been a slump in selling flowers if you happen to be a flower farmer. But if you're a home gardener, maybe you kind of ditched your garden for the heat of summer. It was like, okay, I've had enough. And now it is the time to start realizing that you can have fall blooms coming out of your garden at this time of the year. It's too late right now to actually plant them, but friends, there is no better time to get out your pen and paper, to make notes on your calendar. If you have one of our big calendar journals, about reminding yourself that you can't let this happen to you again, that you want to have what I'm getting ready to tell you about, right? And that is the only way to actually do it. And as I'm leaning back in to more of a avid home gardener, gardens here at the Gardener's Workshop, fall flowers are really coming in hot and heavy on my interest and my focus, and that's what brought me here today. So I want you to meet my lineup, and some of them you may recognize that I also do grow them throughout the warm season, but they take on a whole new life when we have them in fall. So it's a baker's dozen, so I'm going to talk about 13 different flowers that I absolutely love having in fall. They are top sellers in fall. If you're selling at farmers markets and you have nothing else in your booth but what I'm getting ready to tell you about, it'll change your September and October. And so let's just jump in. Now, the very first one, y'all, if you've been with me for more than a minute, you know that I always say, and this is my favorite. My favorite is the flower that's in front of me, harvested and in a bucket and looking beautiful. But I will say that what I have figured out about limelight millet, write that one down, limelight millet, how different it is in different stages that you harvest it in, that you really can make your customers think or your garden look like it's a whole different flower. So we grow limelight all summer long. In fact, back when we were in high production, we planted limelight every single week, or we seed started limelight every single week along with our weekly sunflowers, and planted them very similarly. And the way that I cut them throughout I guess the earliest that we probably have those is in June. When we start cutting them in June and July and for August, I really love harvesting them so first off, I guess I should describe limelight millet is a lime green foliage and seed head and bud head, which is what makes it incredibly universal. You can use it in anything. I mean, if you don't have enough celosia spikes or whatever spike, you can use limelight millet because it just goes with everything. So throughout that summer season, I am harvesting it just as that head is starting to emerge, like 1 to 2 inches out of the foliage, and it continues to develop after you cut it. And that means that you can use it in mixed bouquets or as bunches or however you're selling them as a real useful spike in mixed bouquets, and it just goes with everything. But when fall comes, I let those heads get a little bit more mature, as well as still continue to harvest some of them early, but we allow the lion's share of them to continue developing out in the garden. And then what happens is this: those heads continue to emerge, and then all of a sudden they hang. As they get out of the leaves, they start to hang, and the seed head starts to develop. Now, we cut it before seeds ever develop, but what you'll find is you no longer have this kind of pretty little lime green, chartreuse green spike to use however you need. And I will add that if you sell to florists, they absolutely love it at that stage for the very same reason. And if you sell to supermarkets, they'll buy straight bunches of millet like that because the flower arrangers will actually love them. So as that, you leave them a little bit longer and let those heads develop. The heads get much larger. they hang, and they just take on a whole new look. I particularly love kind of like not doing that all summer, so that when the fall season comes, it's like a new crop, but it's the same old crop that you're growing. And it is really, really fun. And if you're in my Flower Farmer Club, I have been trying to save these this summer and drying them in that more developed stage so that we can make one of our dried wreaths like we do during the winter months, usually in fall, not winter, probably like October or November. And that's really fun. Another actual use for that. But Limelight Millet is a great one to use all summer in one way, and then in fall it takes on a new life. And I want to just add here that many of the flowers, not many, I guess I would say many, I'm looking at my list, we do grow throughout the summer, maybe in different colors and in different ways, just like what I explained to you. And y'all, do you know how simple and easy this is? Now, I'm sure this is not going to surprise you. That was number one. Number two are sunflowers. Now, again, if you've been with me for a minute, you know that we are huge sunflower growers because of its cash flow potential as a flower farmer. But everybody loves sunflowers. If you're a home gardener, you can follow the same steps that we do our weekly sunflowers, but just don't do as many of them. So you have sunflowers either coming out of your garden or blooming in your garden all season long, right? Now, in the summertime, we typically start growing what I call the classic sunflower colors. All the sunflowers I'm referring to are in the Pro Cut series. That's the family that I grow because of how quick they are. They're pollenless, they're single stem, which means I can control the size of the heads. And I pretty much deal with, I call them kind of the jewel colors, because they're the darker colors that are the classic orange with a dark center, with some variations on that people are used to seeing in sunflowers. And we love growing those during the summer months. Now, when fall starts getting into our view, and when I'm starting my seeds, it's the first thing I think of with sunflowers is, when will these be blooming? What season is that? When I start creeping into those weeks that I need to start for those that'll be blooming, primarily, when you start hearing people talking about pumpkin lattes, then that's, when people are also thinking fall flowers. So I think of it for me as September and October. And if I can get some going into November, which I aim for that, it's just bonus, y'all, just bonus. So that's when I start bringing in many of those specialty colors, like the bicolors. There's 3 different bicolored Pro Cuts. And then the other thing is like the dark, they call it red, but people often refer to it as the chocolate sunflower. It is like perfect for fall, right? So here's the other thing that's perfect about I only grow the bicolors and the dark colors in fall. I don't grow them in summer. Nobody wants that dark stuff earlier in the season. They might buy 1 or 2, but it does not warrant you growing them, actually. So those bicolors and specialty colors are very predisposed to drop their petals quicker than any other sunflowers. And that's not just Pro Cuts, that's all varieties. But by only growing them in the fall, it just tends to help that not happen as fast. Cooler conditions, shorter day lengths, I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter to me. I have just figured out that actually happens, right? So that works out really perfectly. But I will say the other 2 colors that I grow now throughout the season, or will be growing throughout the season, that are definitely gems in the fall lineup, sunflowers, we're still talking about sunflowers, y'all, are the new 2 color Pro Cuts, Pro Cut Peach Light and Pro Cut Lemon Light. Now, there's always been a Pro Cut Peach and a Pro Cut Lemon. They both have beautiful petal colors that match their name, but the centers are dark. They have now created them with light centers, and y'all, they are scrumptious. They make your bouquets just glow. And so bringing on sunflowers, even heavier in the fall, is a natural. People, actually, if you talk to people that are not gardeners, they actually think that sunflowers only bloom in the fall. It's really pretty funny. But sunflowers, number 2, huge on the list. Now, number 3 is actually one that we treat as a cool flower, but it blooms late summer and into fall, and that is Helenium. Helenium is known to be a perennial in some areas, but it is not a long-lived perennial. For us as commercial growers, for labor, space planning, and everything else, when I would plant a perennial, we're looking at long life, 5 years, 3 to 5 years. And we don't get that here in the South typically with Heleniums. So we love Helenium. What do? We treat it like a cool season hardy annual, a cool flower. So we fall plant Helenium, and even though it was planted last fall, it is just now starting to bloom. I'm just cutting my first blooms. And when you all see Helenium, it is an absolutely perfect match for fall filler. It is fantastic. And so Helenium is one that can be a major player, particularly if you're doing supermarket or farmer's market bouquets, subscriptions. Helenium definitely needs to be on your play card because it's just so different and pretty. People absolutely adore it. And it's a mix, and you will see that there are some dark colors in there, and there's just enough of them to really just make your bouquets pop. So Helenium is an excellent one. Now this next one, we do a special little marketing trick on y'all, and that is our eucalyptus. So eucalyptus, of course, is just one of the hottest filler foliages plants. We used to sell more just straight bunches of eucalyptus to people that were just taking that home to put it in a vase. They didn't want anything else. And I do that myself here in my home. But here's the lowdown on eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is a warm season tender annual. It grows in Australia, y'all. Doesn't get cold winters down there. And so unless you're growing in a structure, a hoop, or greenhouse, it's kind of dicey whether you could even winter it over. However, I live in zone 8A, and I live right on the cusp with a lot of special heroics. We can winter over eucalyptus. Typically, I will only do it for 1 year. And why do you want to do that? Because of how much more abundant growth you get the second year, meaning more stems. But let's not even think about that. Let's think about how can you get it in your garden by planting it in spring as soon as your last frost is kind of gone, and get it to harvest late in summer. But here's my marketing twist. Our eucalyptus is ready to be harvested like probably late July. It could be harvested, but we always have held our harvest to say we don't even start cutting our eucalyptus till September. And there's a couple of really great reasons for that. It builds up the marketing anticipation. And secondly, eucalyptus, when is it really ready to be cut? Meaning the tips aren't always, they kind of wilt. And that's because it's really hard to read when is it mature enough. By us waiting and just saying we don't even start cutting it till September, it is really clearer to see which ones are ready and which ones aren't. Most of them are ready by that point. So it takes the pressure off of whoever's cutting it, and customers love it. I mean, all summer. When are you going to have eucalyptus? Well, we don't even start cutting it till September 1st. That way they know when to expect it and you know when to cut it. And so here's the way that I start eucalyptus and have it. Right now, our eucalyptus, this is in August, my eucalyptus is as tall as I am, and it was planted April 15th, transplants that I started from seed. So you can grow it and get a decent harvest the first year. And so here's the thing. Eucalyptus is very much like Lysianthus, that it is a super slow growing transplant. So eucalyptus is actually the very first seed that I start when we come back to work after the Christmas holidays. So the first week back, which is the first week in January, the first work day, that is the first seed that started. That allows me to grow it in this, I started in the small block, to grow it in that small block for about 2 to 3 weeks. Once it gets 1 to 2 inches tall, then I bump it up to the 2-inch. And it thrives in my grow room, just growing up in that toasty, Australian-like situation, y'all, and get that baby so I can have the largest transplant I can actually have that is healthy to plant out April 15th. So that's the cusp on eucalyptus, and it is made for fall, y'all. The color, everything about it, absolutely. Particularly my favorite currently is Polyanthemus. Love that one. My 3 favorite eucalyptuses are Silver Dollar, Polyanthemus, and Parvulagum. Parvulagum has a tiny little leaf, which makes it really useful. Polyan has a loose floating leaf, and Silver Dollar is the classic eucalyptus that everybody recognizes. That's the gray, white kind of color. So eucalyptus for sure for fall. And then how about, do you know what pumpkin on a stick is? Pumpkin on a stick is actually an ornamental eggplant variety, and it grows little fruits that look just like pumpkin, y'all, just like pumpkins. And so you need to, again, using your big calendar and looking at days from seed to bloom on all this stuff is how you figure out when you have to plant for fall, y'all. It is literally that simple. Pumpkin on a stick is pretty quick. I think it's like 70 days from seed to setting fruit. So you don't want to be starting this early in the season thinking you're going to have it for fall. We actually succession plant pumpkin on a stick because we will use the early fruit that is still green, sell those stems. People love the green pumpkins as much as they love the orange pumpkins. But the goal is for your whole month of October to be full of stems of orange pumpkin on a stick. Pumpkin on a stick definitely has a challenge. You have to know how to use a florist knife to be able to pluck the thorns off. Thorns, just like roses, y'all, they're pretty vicious. And so just be aware of that. The actual foliage has some pretty serious thorns on it. That's why nobody eats it. That's why deer leave it alone. It has built its own system of combat. They don't have to worry about anybody messing with them. But pumpkin on a stick could be a huge cash crop. And if you're growing it for your home garden, it is so fun, y'all. You can lay it, a stick of pumpkin on a stick, just lay it down on like a tablescape, of course with thorns off, for a couple of weeks. I mean, it just kind of shrivels up and takes on a different look. So you can cut the pumpkins off and put them in a bowl. There's a lot of different uses, but pumpkin on a stick screams fall, screams fall. And then another one that for us is just a classic fall crop, and we used to only grow it for fall for many years, but then I discovered, just like pumpkin on a stick, using it green, and that is the rooster peppers, y'all. That is that exclusive pepper seed that we had grown for us, that the peppers are all on the top of the stem, so you can easily strip it and use it to actually be a part of a bouquet. Straight bunches to florists and supermarkets is huge, green and red, but we used them in our mixed bouquets. But here's the the very special thing about rooster peppers, they're green, they're chilies. You can eat them too. They're very, very hot. But they're useful green. And then mine are just now, this is in August, they're just now starting to turn red. And what we do is after they've all turned red on the plant, we then harvest little tiny bunches, meaning little short bunches, to make clusters to actually dry inside to make wreaths. I do that in my Flower Farmer Club. Again, these are things that, this is called added value products, or if you're a home gardener, how to make your own wreath from stuff from your garden. So the rooster peppers start coming in late summer, but yet our real use for them is in fall, selling them as green and red stems, using them that way, and then harvesting many of them to be used to make dried wreaths, which, you know, every year I make a dried rooster wreath for our Christmas swap at the Gardener's Workshop Company party, and it always gets fought over. Everybody wants one. They're beautiful. They're just all red. It's perfect. You can hang it in your kitchen. I hang mine on my front door. It's like my Christmas wreath. But that is a great one. Now, here are some of the flowers that I mentioned, a few of them that I grow them all summer, but they take on a whole different kind of role as you start pairing them with some of these exclusive fall crops, you know, like the helenium and the eucalyptus and the pumpkin and the roosters. And we'll get to hairy balls in a minute here, and that's another one. They just change the landscape of what you have. So these others, like the first one, so we're on number 7, y'all, and I'll run through the list when I get to the end. Number 7 is basil, and this everleaf lemon is fantastic for fall. It is the sturdiest basil I've grown that smells like lemons. It's slow to go to flower because I want the foliage. I don't want a flower bud. I got enough flowers. The everleaf basil also has a little bit darker stem. Its leaf is a little smaller, and it's not as light colored as the Miss Burns label, who I absolutely adore also. But the everleaf is just so sturdy. It's like, literally, I could see a farmer's market booth with a bucket of each of these things I'm talking to you about, with full of bucket. What a beautiful landscape. And this everleaf just brings such luscious texture, I guess, is what it does. And it is so tall. You have no qualms about whether you're going to have enough stem length. So everleaf lemon basil is a fantastic one. And then here's a surprise one, probably for some people. Celosia plumosa, or actually I think it's a spigata, flamingo feather. Flamingo feather, I don't know if it's the day length that makes this happen, or the heat, or what it is, but you know, we succession plant all of our annuals multiple times, you know, anywhere from 2 to 6 times a summer, depending on what, you know, your rate of how you need flowers. Our flamingo feather earlier in the season gets a blush pink blush, meaning it's not solid, but it's like painted on the tips. The flamingo feather, same seed, y'all, this time of the year doesn't seem to have that blush quite as strongly, and it's got a very green haze to it, and I absolutely love it. And that's what I love it for. So flamingo feather just falls in line with this whole lineup of flowers that we're talking about. It just blends with whatever you put it with, and it's a beautiful spike. And that is really an incredibly productive plant also. You know, I did not start growing flamingo feather, gosh, until about 5 years ago. You know, there are so many annuals to explore, great cut flowers, that sometimes until you see them, I saw them at a farm and thought, why am I not growing that, right? And so flamingo feather is a natural for fall harvest. then this one won't surprise you, especially if you've been hanging with me for a minute. You know that my favorite color is orange. The Celosia plumosa Sunday series, the orange, I mean, it is perfect for fall. It is a bright orange too, y'all. So it can really be a pop in, you know, if your people are really loving all these greens and textures in bouquets and stuff. But for those folks that do like color, you have some orange Sunday with some of those sunflowers in some of this backdrop foliage filler. Holy cow. What a beautiful, and the Sunday coming in from the field right now, I measured it, is over 30 inches tall. 30 inches is what the team knows to cut it down to on all of our tall stuff. And when I saw them measuring to cut it, I thought, is it really that tall? And it is, y'all. So Sunday series orange is a fantastic fall garden. And if you want it for your home garden, it is beautiful. You know, especially if you do a lot of entertaining in your yard. You know, we all tend to kind of like go back outside in the fall. We love having our fire pit going and doing s'mores and making hot chocolate and drinking coffee. And it is so fun to think about a garden that would be planted with some of these guys. And then another natural for fall is the Celosia cressida coxcomb Jura salmon. That is another seed we had exclusively grown for us. It's a beautiful brancher, and it is this soft salmon color, and it is a great backup on anything we're talking about here today. It is so beautiful. When we were selling to florists and to supermarkets, I mean, we never had any of this for our bouquets. Suzanne was always kind of annoyed with me over that. We just could never have enough. It didn't matter how much I planted. We cut it clean every week, and it always sold out. It's just a color that is so soft, but yet is a beautiful color. Love it so much. So that's Jura salmon, and that is a beauty. And then a family that some people may shy away from, but I want to introduce you to one of my friends, and that is the white swan marigold. Marigolds get a bad rap because of the fragrance. First off, I will say the fragrance is from the foliage, not the flower. So you can just strip the foliage and the smell goes away. Nobody dislikes it more than me. I mean, I am so sensitive to allergies and smells and stuff. So that's how I figured that out many, many moons ago. But the white swan marigold is a low to no fragrance marigold. And I absolutely love the color. First off, it's not really stark white. It's more of a buttercream. You have to see it in person. But I also prefer that it's not stark white. It goes with everything you need to do. You know, and marigolds in general last 3 weeks in a vase. They last forever in a garden if you're growing them as a landscape plant. They're fantastic. And so white swan marigolds are a perfect match to line up with all these other guys. And the foliage on them, since they aren't fragrant, you can leave on the top foliage, and it's a great filler. It's sturdy foliage. So we just absolutely love it. And Suzanne loves using it because many times it's got what we call breaks in the stem, so that there's a couple, 3 blooms on a stem instead of just one single, that they tend to bloom at the same time, so it makes them really useful. So we love white swan, and white swan is coming in at number 11. We're almost done, y'all. And then number 12, I wasn't going to put number 12, but then I thought, for the people that just don't know this and know about it yet, I don't want them to miss. Y'all, it's another marigold. But it's the Cocoa Mix. Cocoa Mix is the known bomb blooms. They're big. They're beautiful. And it has all 3 of the colors, the gold, the orange, and the lemon yellow. And now that you know the secret, that it's the foliage that makes them stink, you could, and I know this because we did it. We used marigolds, the Cocoa Mix, in our supermarket bouquets for years, hundreds of bouquets every week. And marigolds were major players in them. And we kind of got a name because people don't tend to like the smell of marigolds. There's somebody that's allergic, and when you put them inside a house, it just really ramps up the smell. So whether you like the smell or not, it's not always a good idea to put fragrance like that in a bouquet. We became known as the mixed bouquets that had the flowers that lasted forever. You know what the three floater flowers were that really made that happen? Marigolds, sunflowers, and coxcomb, because those all lasted a long time. People love flowers to last a long time, y'all. They see value in it. And if you strip the foliage off of the cocos, then you have those big, beautiful flowers with no foliage. And you just have to learn how to do it. Once you've done it and get good at it, it's called practice. Why do you think basketball players practice every day? And piano players, you just got to get good at it if you need to have that. So that's number 12, the cocoa mix marigold. And let's talk about candy corn colors, y'all. If you combined the cocoa with the white swan, you are looking at candy corn. Let's talk about Sunday orange in there also. Amazing. Just saying. How many of those would you sell at a farmer's market? Okay, number 13 of the baker's dozen is good old hairy balls. Hairy balls is Gumpacarpus physocarpus. Do not Google hairy balls, y'all. Not pretty. And you can find it on our website. And in our app, you can see the botanical name and get the seed and learn more about it. But what makes hairy balls so amazing is, first off, it's a tropical. It is not a native butterflied weed. It is a monarch support plant. It can be invasive in some areas. We just haven't really experienced that here. But you plant it early. It's kind of like Helenium. You plant it way early. Or eucalyptus is what I should say. It's like eucalyptus. You plant it as soon as you can after your frost, but it's not going to really do anything until the end of summer. So it grows into this big plant with this little insignificant flower. And that little flower turns into this green seed pod that I've been selling hairy balls, for at least 12 or 15 years. I can remember the first time I ever sold it was at a farmer's market, and people were either enamored and attracted to it immediately, or they were appalled. And why were they appalled? Because they resemble an anatomy, and when you let them get too large, they really resemble anatomy, and that just is funny to some people, but it's only funny to a few people. When you learn to start harvesting them earlier, more immature, as they look more like a golf ball or smaller, green chartreuse, beautiful seed pod, multiples on a stem, a lot more people are interested in buying them and seeing them. So take that for whatever you want. We let them get too big for many years. We didn't understand. And you can do things with them when they're smaller. You can dry them and we make wreaths, all kinds of stuff. So hairy balls, because it doesn't happen until the end of the growing season. And if you have a short growing season, you may not even be able to get them. And so they are a crop that people look forward to all summer long. When I used to go to sell in the supermarkets, I sold to Fresh Markets and Harris Teeters. I can remember almost always on the first delivery of the season, like in May, the manager, who never usually speaks to you, comes over and says, "When are you going to have those green balls? Our customers can't stop talking about them." And so you just have to figure it out. So friends, let me just run through this list one more time so you can be sure you have them all. We talked about Limelight Millet. We talked about the Pro Cut series of sunflowers, focusing in the fall on the bicolors, the solid red, and then the new Peach Light and Lemon Light. Then we talked about the Cool Flower Helenium. I grow red and gold, which you can find it in our seed shop. And we talked about eucalyptus. We talked about pumpkin on a stick, the rooster peppers, the everleaf lemon basil, the celosia flamingo feather, the celosia orange sundae. We talked about the celosia coxcomb jura salmon, marigold white swan, marigold cocoa mix for Halloween, y'all. That is just such a great one for Halloween. And then number 13 came in at Hairy Balls. So I'm not saying that I don't grow zinnias for the fall, but they definitely take the back seat to a lot of this other stuff, right? And so I just want to say another side note, I don't ever talk about it enough while we're talking about fall, is if you have space available to grow the Paradovic sunflower cover crop. Those are sunflowers that are not for cutting. They produce tons of pollen and nectar for pollinators, and then fabulous seed for birds like goldfinches, chickadees. I mean, we have hundreds of songbirds in our field right now. But this is a great one to plant in the summer, to have the enjoyment to watch this in the fall. And I've mentioned it a couple of times when we were talking about the individual flowers. You know, another great fall flower thing that we talk about is using dried flowers that we have accumulated through the season. Those are like flowers that we didn't sell or use or whatever, and we just hang them to dry. And we use them in the fall to make wreaths or even dry bunches, whether you're selling them, gifting them, or using them in your own home. And you know, the flower journey of making I made master classes for my Flower Farmer Club on there's 2 master classes I'm thinking of on dried flowers. Doing that, because it was a journey. We had to like grow the flowers, harvest the flowers, dry the flowers, then what to do with the flowers, right? Opened my eyes to how easy it can be when you just simplify and do it, y'all, and just dry everything. I mean, who knew that bupleurum and safflower, which is Carthamus, were so stinking beautiful dry? I mean, we just learned so much making those master classes for our Flower Farmer Club. It was just an eye-opening experience. You know, and the club does open a couple of times a year for new members, and you can check that out. I'm sure Jesse will put the link in the show notes, and you'll either be able to join or you'll get on the wait list to be notified when that club actually opens, and you'll have access to so many master classes and private blogs, which we call the Bloomcast in there. And we do weekly meetups. I do a live Q&A once a month, and a fantastic community board where you can ask me questions all the time. Anyway, friends, I hope that this has made you get out your pencil, your big calendar journal, which if you need one of those, you'll find that on my website, and figure out when you're supposed to plant this stuff so that you can reap the bounty of what I am reaping right now out of my garden. And for you to do it all fall. Fall is only second to spring in eagerness of blooms, high demand for selling flowers, and all such. People are partying again. It's just a great group of flowers to get yourself familiar with. And it is many of the same flowers you're already growing. It's just figuring out how to get them then, and then how to grow the perfect companions that only come out in fall. All right, my friends, remember, head to thegardenersworkshop.com when you want to poke around, explore, or if you have a need come up for tools, seeds, and supplies. And we thank you for listening. Ciao.